Time and again, people have reported UFOs in the sky and encounters with aliens who allegedly took them onto their spaceship. Many of these claims are, of course, impossible to prove, and even images of supposed spaceships in the night sky not infrequently turn out to be simple searchlights from a helicopter. But does that necessarily mean we're alone in the universe? Mysteriously, in recent years, there have been repeated strange discoveries that are said to be the remains of extraterrestrials. In fact, even experienced scientists have a hard time explaining some of these unbelievable finds. Mysterious Mayan artifacts. In 2012, the Mexican government somewhat surprisingly released a series of interesting Mayan artifacts that had been in their possession for over 80 years and were even declared a state secret. These were found in a lost pyramid that was discovered rather accidentally under another pyramid in Calakmul. The objects, which appear to have existed since the early Maya period, include UFOs and extraterrestrial visitors. Did the Maya immortalize images of beings from another world visiting Earth many years ago? In moving images, the artifacts were to be featured in a government-cleared documentary, but production has since been halted. So far, there has been no scientific proof that the objects found were authentic, but nor has it been possible to prove the opposite. At least the few published images of the alleged alien artifacts from Mexico look impressive. And who knows, maybe one day the truth behind this mysterious find will come to light. Gear of a UFO. One day in Vladivostok, a Russian found a strange object that appeared to be part of a machine. It bore a strong resemblance to a gear and was embedded in a piece of coal. After the man removed the item from the coal and examined it more closely, he wanted to proudly present it to his friends. Now, you have to know that discarded components from old machines are not uncommon in Russia, but apparently this gear does not belong to a modern machine at all. Experts who examined the man's find more closely determined that it was made of pure aluminum. Strange, however, that the scientist stated the age of the gear wheel to be 300 million years old, and it was actually only in 1825 that man discovered how to produce aluminum. Rumors quickly spread that the gear belonged to an alien spaceship that landed on Earth a long time ago. However, the scientists do not want to confirm this assumption because they first want to examine the find more closely. The stone head from Guatemala. During an expedition in the 1930s, explorers in the Guatemalan jungle suddenly discovered a huge stone statue shaped like a face. In addition to the size of the statue, what is particularly interesting is the fact that its facial features do not resemble those of a Mayan or any other human who inhabited the Earth at that time. Instead, the elongated skull and the very fine facial features do not portray a human at all. Some researchers are sure that the oversized skull shows a representative of an extraterrestrial species who visited Earth many years ago and had a significantly higher IQ. Accordingly, the indigenous people dedicated their sculpture to him in his honor. It would of course have been very interesting to investigate the origin of the statue using today's research methods, but the stone head was used by troops for target practice and was completely destroyed. Just an unfortunate coincidence or a deliberate cover-up. The Williams Enigmalith. In 1998, while hiking, John J. Williams came across a strange rock which he took with him. As he removed the dirt, he noticed that there was a mysterious electrical component on it that, from a purely visual point of view, was reminiscent of a kind of miniature socket. Among UFO fans, the Williams Enigmalith, named after him, has long been regarded as the legacy of visitors from space, although this has not been officially confirmed by scientists. However, Williams himself, an electrical engineer by trade, is absolutely certain that the electrical component was neither glued to the stone by hand nor welded onto it. Instead, the stone appears to have formed around the component. An initial investigation by renowned scientists has already shown that the stone is roughly 100,000 years old and that its inner workings were therefore not created by humans. Williams has so far vehemently refused to have the stone opened to examine its inner workings more closely. Instead, he only agrees to scientific investigations if he does not have to pay for the research himself, if he is present and the stone remains intact. During this time, he has tried to sell it for a price of $500,000. So far, no buyer has been interested. The Ubaid lizard people. Year after year, archaeologists are drawn to the Al-Ubaid site in Iraq, which is considered a magnet for historians. Countless mysterious artifacts from long-forgotten times have been discovered here, but none are as disturbing as the so-called Ubaid lizard people. These are apparently handmade statues, but they do not appear to be based on a human model. Instead, they have a lizard-like shape and a strange, elongated head. The unusual posture here also rules out animal-headed deities. Many UFO fans, however, are sure that the strange beings must be some kind of reptilian aliens who roamed the Earth hundreds of thousands of years ago to explore. But can that really be true? As is so often said, the truth is out there somewhere. The meteor mask. The fact that smaller pieces of meteorites regularly fall to Earth is by no means uncommon and actually hardly worth reporting. However, what a local resident found one day in the Kalahari Desert deserves reporting. He discovered a piece of meteorite shaped like a mask, complete with the characteristic facial features and 2 holes for the eyes. Many meteorite collectors, but also researchers, believe that the mask is an imprint of the face of a human-like being. But how exactly the piece landed in the middle of the desert and who might have shaped it is completely unclear. Meteorites from Sri Lanka. Remains of meteorites have also been found in Sri Lanka. However, these do not resemble a mask, but have very special inner workings. Fossilized remains of extraterrestrial aquatic plants were discovered inside them. This means that the plant remains do not come from the Earth, so says scientist Chandra Wickramasinghe, who is absolutely certain of this. According to his statement, critics complained that the meteorite fragments had perhaps been lying on the Earth long enough and had been soiled with freshwater plants. However, they were silenced when another meteorite was discovered in 2012, which had the same aquatic plant residues inside. A contamination by Mother Earth can therefore be absolutely excluded. So, could this magnificent discovery actually be the remains of extraterrestrial life forms? Small golden planes. The Incas left mankind with numerous extremely mysterious objects. One of the strangest of these is without a doubt the so-called ancient airplanes, which are small golden figures whose appearance is very reminiscent of a modern jet airplane. Apart from the fact that there were of course no airplanes at the time of the Incas, the figures even have features that are reminiscent of the design of fighter planes and the landing gear installed in them. Aviation fans used the figures to recreate model airplanes that were actually able to fly. All of this evidence suggests that the Incas apparently had contact with humans or extraterrestrial beings who had such complex flying machines at their disposal during that time period. Or are the characters simply a very creatively inspired recreation of golden bees, which the Incas worshipped for their honey? Summer's Triumph. Summer's Triumph is a world-famous tapestry that was made in the Belgian city of Bruges in 1538 and has been on display in the Bavarian National Museum for many years. However, if you look at this tapestry a little closer, and some people have, you will notice that there are several objects floating in the sky that resemble UFOs. Since the motif on the tapestry depicts a ruler's rise to power, some scholars express the suspicion that the hovering saucers are connected to the ruler as a kind of divine intervention. Then all that would really need to be addressed is how Belgians who lived in the 16th century knew the appearance of a flying saucer. The Bet Sphere. Arguably one of the most mysterious mysteries of modern times is a strange sphere owned by the Betts family of the United States. After a major fire destroyed the family's property in 1974 and destroyed more than 35 hectares of land, a later survey of the damage discovered a strange silver sphere, measuring about 20 centimeters in diameter and surprisingly heavy at almost 10 kilos. Although the sphere was in the very center of the fire, it was not destroyed or even damaged in any way. After the sphere had been in the house of the Betts family for many weeks, one day the son of the family spontaneously picked up the guitar to play a little song. Lo and behold, the silver ball then began to vibrate like a tuning fork and played back the individual tones in perfect unison. Skull and Pyramid in Shimao. In a remote stretch of land in China, some researchers recently came across an extraordinary archaeological find. The rural region has always been surrounded by dusty hill ranges, amidst which are the remains of large rock walls. Residents in the surrounding area thought that the site was merely a rotten section of the world-famous Great Wall of China. However, some objects discovered near the supposed wall led to initial doubts about the origin of the large ruins. Why did precious objects, such as parts made of the valuable material jade, keep turning up near the rampart? To finally get to the bottom of the mystery, the Chinese government sent a team of renowned archaeologists to the region. In the course of their investigations, the experts discovered that the ruins in question were not parts of the Great Wall of China, but the remains of a once magnificent fortress city. This city was eventually to be christened Shimao. In detail, the town was once surrounded by a rampart more than 10 kilometers long. In turn, the builders erected a 70-meter-high pyramid in the center of Shimao. The numerous sculptures of mystical monsters found during the excavations were not the only artifacts that puzzled the archaeologists. Underneath the wall, the experts came across 80 human skulls. The gruesome discovery suggests that Shimao was once the site of brutal human sacrifices. It's unknown, however, why the huge fortress city is not mentioned in Chinese historiography, even though it was built around 4,300 years ago, much earlier than the Great Wall of China. Stone Circle of Dromberg. Structures like Stonehenge are as fascinating as they are mysterious. For a long time, the monument erected in the Neolithic age was considered unique and raised big questions again and again. How did the people of that time manage to arrange the boulders weighing tons into an impressive, symmetrical stone circle? The discovery of comparable structures, however, raised new questions in the minds of archaeologists. According to the findings, Stonehenge, which was built near the English town of Amesbury, is not the only object of its kind. Not far from the Irish region of Dromberg, there is a similar structure, which in detail has a diameter of over 9 meters and was assembled from 17 individual stone blocks. Investigations revealed that a lively community had settled around the impressive stone circle in the 5th century AD. Particularly bizarre, in the center of the structure, scientists once discovered an ancient pot, inside of which lay the burnt remains of a young child. Etruscan language. Latin is generally considered the prime example of a dead language. Although Latin has not been spoken in everyday life for many centuries, in our modern world we are still able to translate and understand the writings of the ancient Romans. But not every extinct language in human history appears to us today as a proverbial open book. The Etruscan language, which was used in large parts of Italy between the 9th century BC and the 1st century AD, has always been the subject of various legends. At present, we are only able to decipher a few passages of the Etruscan writings that have been found. Furthermore, it's completely unclear which original language underlies the enigmatic Etruscan language. Sesostris III Pyramid. What was the purpose of Sesostris III Pyramid? Scientists have been asking this question ever since the monument was discovered in 1839 by the explorer John Shea Perring in Dashur. The pyramid was built around the 12th dynasty in ancient Egypt and continues to puzzle international teams of experts to this day. For example, the entrance to the approximately 4,000-year-old structure could not be found for several decades. In 1882, the French Egyptologist Gaston Maspero even went so far as to have numerous stone blocks of the pyramid removed in order to finally expose the entrance of the interior. However, even this inglorious method was not to be crowned with success. 12 years later, Jacques de Morgan finally succeeded in penetrating the mysterious belly of Sesostris III Pyramid. In the process, the explorer also reached the pyramid's burial chamber, which still contained 2 boxes with magnificent dowries. However, there was no trace of a mummy. Since some researchers suspect that the pyramid was the final resting place of the Egyptian king Sesostris III, the building was also baptized in his name. Oracle bones. In ancient times, anyone who was faced with a tricky decision or wanted to gain an insight into their personal future often sought the help of a legendary oracle. This was a mysterious ritual in the course of which various divinations were made. In ancient China, so-called oracle bones were frequently used for this purpose. The special thing about their millennia-old bone parts which were dug out of the ground in some Chinese excavation sites, are the countless inscriptions that adorn the supernatural tools. The oracle bones used, however, were mostly the shoulder bones of oxen or parts of turtle shells. If the oracle was to be asked for advice, the bones used were strongly heated. In this way, the ancestors from the other world were given the opportunity to make their opinion known in this world. During the heating process, several cracks and furrows appeared on the oracle bones. The medium who attended these supernatural meetings would then interpret the notches on the bones and indicate what advice the ancestors were giving. Apart from this superstitious rite, the Chinese oracle bones have an extraordinary value for scientists. In fact, the enigmatic bone inscriptions are considered the first historical evidence of Chinese writing. After the first oracle bones were found in China in 1899, more than 100,000 others were to be discovered over the decades. Proto-Elamites. The Proto-Elamites are among the most enigmatic cultures ever to have inhabited our globe. This is mainly due to the fact that today we know next to nothing about the people who lived in what is now Iran between the years 3200 and 2700 BC. Although more than 1,500 written documents of the Proto-Elamites have been discovered in the course of time, it is not possible for us to translate the corresponding inscriptions. Likely the most famous find dating from the era of the lost culture is the so-called Guanol lioness. This is a small limestone sculpture not even 10 centimeters in size, which shows the image of a proud lioness. The filigree construction of the statue proves the craftsmanship of the Proto-Elamites. The object, which was rediscovered in 1930, was made around the year 3000 BC. Currently, the Guanol lioness is considered by far the most expensive antique in history. The sculpture was auctioned in 2007 for the record sum of $57 million. Indus culture. The Indus culture is generally considered to be one of the earliest civilizations on our globe. Between the years 2800 and 1800 BC, the cities of the Indus culture extended over large parts of the Indian subcontinent. The civilization covered an area of more than 1,250,000 kilometers squared. The advanced construction methods of the people support the thesis that the members of the Indus culture were far ahead of their time. In addition to magnificent temple complexes, the people of that time also built public baths, created ornaments rich in detail, and conducted lively trade with Egypt and Mesopotamia. Remains of the Byzantine Basilica. The Byzantine Basilica, a church that is about 1,600 years old, was long thought to be irretrievably lost. A few years ago, a team of archaeologists finally succeeded in rediscovering the remains of the time-honored building. In the middle of Lake Iznik in Turkey, they came across the ruins of a centuries-old object that may have served as the site where the first council in the history of mankind was held during the Byzantine period. In 325, more than 300 bishops met in the basilica to discuss the nature of Jesus Christ. The aim was to clarify the statue of the Savior of the Christian faith. Previously, Arius from Alexandria had sparked the discussion to no longer regard Jesus as the embodiment of God. The bishops finally agreed that Jesus should continue to retain the status of God incarnate within Christian doctrine. In addition to the foundations of the basilica, various coins, lamps, and seals were also found in Lake Iznik. Arthur's Seat. Arthur's Seat is the name given to a mountain over 250 meters high in the Scottish capital, Edinburgh. Recently, some researchers stumbled upon some mysterious relics at the top of the mountain, which could make us rethink parts of human history. The archaeologists unearthed the remains of a prehistoric fortification built by the Votodini people about 3,000 years ago. This was an ancient British tribe that still raises many questions today. Gripshunden ship. The Danish warship Gripshunden was anchored off the Ronneby region in 1495. Together with a large fleet, the crew of the royal ship was then to set off for Sweden to conduct important political negotiations. However, for reasons still unknown, the Gripshunden caught fire and sank into the depths of the sea. In the 1970s, some divers came across the wreck of the Gripshunden. However, people did not know at the time that it was the remains of the famous lost ship. It would take until 2013 before the Gripshunden could be identified beyond doubt. The Danish watercraft gives us an incomparably accurate insight into the breathtaking construction of warships of that time. An extraterrestrial. Do you believe in the existence of extraterrestrial life? In 1948, a mysterious incident occurred near the US town of Clarkville. Several eyewitnesses reported an unidentified flying object crashing to Earth. Subsequently, the government is said to have removed all evidence of the mysterious accident. The pictures circulating on the internet of a box containing the alleged alien, some fragments of its UFO, and top-secret documents from the administration are proof for some people that the case is real.
Technology to study stars. Humans have been studying the stars for thousands of years, but it was not until 1609 that Galileo Galilei first used a telescope to glimpse the stars, making him the first man to do so. Over the years, the technology behind telescopes has evolved to let us view images up to 400 times their normal size. Modern telescopes can give us insights into events that occur in the most remote parts of the universe, when stars form, when they die, and even when extraterrestrial objects cross into our solar system. The Panoramic Survey Telescope and Rapid Response System, or PAN-STARRS-1, is a collection of astronomical cameras, telescopes, and a computing facility that continuously scans the sky for moving or variable objects while also producing precise astronomy and photometry of objects that have already been found. It is housed at the Haleakala Observatory in Hawaii, United States. The second PAN-STARRS data release was announced in January 2019. It is the greatest collection of astronomical data ever disclosed, weighing in at 1.6 petabytes. Under the management of the University of Hawaii, the PAN-STARRS went online on the 6th of December 2008, but didn't begin full-time science observations until the 13th of May 2010. This powerful telescope was used to detect the first interstellar object passing through our solar system. Oumuamua. An interstellar object is an astronomical object in interstellar space that is not gravitationally connected to a star, but the term can also refer to an object that is traveling through space but is momentarily passing by a star, like some asteroids and comets. On the 19th of October 2017, astronomer and physicist Robert Work was observing the stars using the PAN-STARRS telescope in Hawaii. He detected an object passing through our solar system. The object was 21 million miles from Earth when Work observed it. That distance is like traveling to the moon 85 times. The object was named Oumuamua. It is red, but rather small for a space object at about 3,000 feet long and 548 feet thick. The name Oumuamua is Hawaiian and roughly translates to first distant messenger. The object showed strange characteristics as it moved close to the sun. Normally, when viewed on a telescope, objects that pass close to the sun, like comets, appear fuzzy. This is because a nebulous envelope forms around the nucleus of the comet. This envelope is called a coma. Unlike regular comets, Oumuamua didn't have any coma. The object was also observed to be moving in a tumbling motion instead of a more traditional spinning motion of comets. It moves at a speed fast enough to escape the gravitational pull of the sun. This means that Oumuamua came from a different solar system and it would eventually leave our own, but its original planetary system is not known. Most scientists believe that Oumuamua is a natural object, but a few others believe that it is a product of alien technology, perhaps a drone sent to explore our solar system. Avi Loeb's theory. Avi Loeb is a physicist and professor at Harvard University. He is known for pushing the claim that alien life exists and Oumuamua could be proof. To explain Oumuamua's non-gravitational acceleration, Loeb and his postdoctoral student Shmuley Bailey published an article on October 26, 2018. In this article, they examine the idea that the object might be an artificial thin solar sail driven by solar radiation pressure. Solar sails are a method of spacecraft propulsion using radiation pressure exerted by sunlight on large mirrors. Other researchers have claimed that the evidence is insufficient to support such a claim and that a solar sail in motion cannot accelerate. In response, Loeb published an essay describing 6 abnormal characteristics of Oumuamua that set it apart from other comets and asteroids. Loeb and Harvard undergrad Amir Siraj proposed to search for particles like Oumuamua that may have become trapped in the solar system after losing orbital energy during a near encounter with Jupiter on November 27, 2018. The scientists noted that more interstellar objects could be discovered by future sky surveys, such as those using the Large Synoptic Survey telescope. Loeb published a book titled Extraterrestrials, the first sign of intelligent life beyond Earth. In his book, he describes the 2017 detection of Oumuamua. Project Lyra. There have been talks to send a spacecraft to Oumuamua to discover what the interstellar object is. Project Lyra is a feasibility study launched by the Initiative for Interstellar Study, I for IS, to determine if a journey to Oumuamua is feasible and how to go about it. The goal of the mission is not just to figure out how to get to Oumuamua, but must get to it in a reasonable time, at a close enough distance to Earth, and still be able to get useful scientific information. Researchers suggested in January 2022 that a spacecraft launch from Earth could catch up to Oumuamua in 26 years. A problem could be that our spacecraft will eventually overtake Oumuamua, so scientists must figure out ways to decelerate the spacecraft when it gets close to its target. Scientists believe that the mission would be challenging, but it would be both feasible and scientifically attractive. Past civilizations buried in Antarctica. Oumuamua passed through our solar system, but is there proof of alien technology landing on Earth? There are claims that Antarctica was once ice-free and that an ancient civilization is buried under the ice in Antarctica. Could they hold secrets to alien life? The ancient Piri Reis map was created in 1513 using military intelligence. It is thought to have verified the existence of Antarctica's hidden city. Even though the map appears to depict the Antarctic coast hundreds of years before it was found, many academics at the time rejected it. But recent images from NASA seem to show signs of a human settlement below the ice. Online investigators speculate that these images depict a city. The images were captured using remote sensing photography for NASA's Operation Icebridge expedition to Antarctica. Google Earth photographs also appear to show a pyramid sticking out of the tundra, with supporters suggesting it is proof that people formerly lived in the region and created buildings. Conspiracies sprang out of the wake of these images. Some claim that Hitler was aware of the city in Antarctica and claimed it as German territory. The Nazis built a base there and discovered alien technology buried under the ice. Others claim they contacted aliens and got information on how to build superweapons. Some people believe that the rumored base is still present and that the Illuminati, Germans, and aliens are conspiring to establish a new world order from it. Pentagon UFO videos. With theories spreading of alien tech and a Nazi base in the Arctic region, believers in the extraterrestrial would be glad to learn that the Pentagon released videos that confirm the existence of UFOs. In 2020, the Pentagon officially released a few videos captured by Navy SEALs. These videos show unidentified flying objects that some people believe to be alien technology. The videos released were captured in 2004, 2014, 2015, and 2019. Tic Tac. Fighter pilot Commander David Fravor of the USS Nimitz Carrier Strike Group claims to have investigated radar readings of a potential target off the Southern California coast on November 14, 2004. According to Fravor, the strike group's USS Princeton CG-59 ship had been monitoring strange aircraft for 2 weeks before the incident. The plane would arrive at an altitude of 80,000 feet, 24,000 meters, then quickly descend toward the water before coming to a stop and hovering around 20,000 feet. Fravor claimed to have observed a white oval object floating over an occlusion in the water. He calculated the length of the object to be around 40 feet. There were 4 persons in total, 2 pilots and 2 weapons systems officers in the back seats of the 2 planes who saw the object. According to Fravor and another pilot, Alex Dietrich, they saw the object for roughly 5 minutes. Fravor claims that as he descended to get closer to the object, it rose and followed his plane's track upward until it vanished. A second wave of fighters, led by Lieutenant Commander Chad Underwood, took over the investigation. Underwood's aircraft had a cutting-edge infrared camera, FLIR, which Fravor's craft did not have. Underwood captured the FLIR video and named the infrared image Tic Tac, but did not personally observe any odd objects. Gimbal and Go Fast. Fighter pilots from the USS Theodore Roosevelt Carrier Strike Group were flying off the east coast of the United States between 2014 and 2015. They reported instrument detections of unidentified aircraft objects. During this time, they filmed the Gimbal and Go Fast videos at the time. The New York Times published 2 videos named FLIR and Gimbal when they reported on the incidents on December 16, 2017. UFO investigators raised their speculations, but the story reported by the New York Times wasn't accepted by everyone. Journalism professor Keith Clore spoke of the story, calling it a curious narrative that appears to be driven by thinly sourced and slanted reporting. Clore added, "Cursory attention has been given to the most likely prosaic explanations. Instead, the coverage has, for the most part, taken a quizzical mysterious frame that plays off a catchy UFO tag in the headline. Another similar video was made available to the public in 2019, but it wasn't until April 2021 that the Pentagon verified it. Pentagon spokesperson Sue Go confirmed that the video was captured by Navy personnel aboard USS Russell. The video shows what appears to be an unidentified triangular object in the sky. But are these actually UFOs? Potential explanation. The Department of Defense classified these videos as unidentified, but the claims still exist that they show proof of extraterrestrial life. However, not every member of the public believes that they are sufficient to prove the existence of alien life. Writer Matthew Gault spoke on the UFO theories, saying that the events reflect the same pattern that has played out dozens of times before. Someone sees something strange in the sky, and the public jumps into an illogical conclusion. Skeptics believe that the instruments on the plane must have malfunctioned, or the objects look strange to us because of human observational illusion, like parallax, where our viewpoint makes us see objects quite different from how they truly are. Zimbabwe school sighting. UFO sightings do not occur only in the United States. At around 10 a.m. on September 16, 1994, 62 pupils from the Ariel School, Zimbabwe, claimed to have seen a silver craft and aliens. At the time of the sighting, the children were aged between 6 and 12. According to them, while their teachers were having a meeting, the aircraft descended on a field near the school. One or more creatures emerged and spoke to the children telepathically. Their message was about the preservation of the environment. The incident lasted about 15 minutes. Strangely, 2 days before this event, there were multiple accounts of UFO sightings in southern Africa. The pupils had reported the sightings to their teachers, who waved it off, but the next day they had informed their parents, who came to the school to discuss the incident with the teachers. Tim Leach, the BBC's Zimbabwe reporter, paid a visit to the school on September 19th to record interviews with students and staff. Leach stated, "I could manage war zones, but I could not handle this." Author Cynthia Hind learned about the sighting via a report of it on ZBC Radio. She visited the school on September 20th, 1994. She spoke with a few of the children and asked them to sketch what they had witnessed. She claimed that all the kids had told her the same tale. Australian school sighting. The sighting in an Australian school happened at about 11 a.m. on the 6th of April, 1966. Students and one teacher from the Westall High School saw a flying object. They described the object as gray or silver green and saucer-shaped. The craft flew over the school and disappeared behind some trees, only to re-emerge 20 minutes later, this time pursued by 5 other aircraft. Author Keith Basterfield claimed that what the school had seen was a balloon blown off course from the Highball High Altitude Balloon Project. The balloons were used to monitor radiation levels after British nuclear tests at Maralinga. 50 years later in 2016, live interviews were carried out with the witnesses of the event. Operation Prato. In 1977, there were numerous UFO sightings reported in Colares, Brazil. Residents of the area claimed that they had developed scars on their bodies. They claimed that the scars were caused by lights in the sky. In response to this, the Brazilian Air Force launched Operation Saucer, or Operation Prato in Portuguese. The operation was commanded by Captain Irangue Bolivar Soares Nogueira de Holland Lima. It went on until 1978, but was closed when they found no evidence of unusual activity. Captain Irangue talked about his experiences living with his men in an interview he gave to ufologist Admiral Jose Girard and Marco Antonio Petit in 1997, 20 years after the operation. He was discovered dead in his house 3 months after the interview. He had seemingly hung himself using the belt of his bathrobe. His death sparked the curiosity of conspiracy theorists. According to ufologist Jacques Vallée, some people were killed by the lights that the UFO shot at them, and injuries were compatible with microwave radiation effects. Other ufologists claim that 400 people's blood was drawn by the lights from UFOs. Quote Bob Lazar, "Science has been wrong since there have been scientists." Bob Lazar has seen Area 51 from the inside. Now the UFO leaker reveals one last secret. Aliens have never left the planet. If you believe Lazar, NASA and the Pentagon have known about extraterrestrial technologies and civilizations for a long time, but the knowledge has been kept from us. In the 1980s, Lazar worked in a top-secret test facility where he built flying saucers. According to him, the key to space-time travel is a mysterious element 115. Once we have found it and harnessed it, the path to outer space will be wide open for us too. Engineer and scientist Bob Lazar claims to have been involved in a secret UFO workshop in the 1980s. Lazar's extraordinary claims include inside knowledge of secret facilities, such as Area 51, and a scientific test site called S4. Lazar's publications have aroused the curiosity of millions and, of course, skepticism. Especially within the recognized scientific community, his work has been heavily criticized. Lazar's tales of advanced technologies and propulsion systems that far exceed the known laws of physics, and his claims about hitherto largely unknown element 115, go beyond the scope of what our unnatural science considers possible. Accepted science tends to vehemently reject fantastic claims such as Lazar's without tangible evidence and reproducible results. But Lazar is right when he says that science has been wrong ever since it has existed, and now it may be wrong again. There are spaceships everywhere in the universe. Quote, "I have absolutely no doubt that an alien spaceship exists outside this solar system." It sounds like something out of a science fiction thriller. Bob Lazar claims to have worked with extraterrestrial technologies in secret workshops for years. His workplace was the super-secret facility with the simple name S4, which is said to be very close to the legendary Area 51. Lazar claims to have seen 9 different types of extraterrestrial spaceships there, all with unique designs and capabilities. Technologically, the UFOs are nothing like anything we know on Earth. They have no classic combustion engines and are made of materials that are largely unknown on Earth. Lazar calls the typical disc-shaped UFO that dozens of people observe on this Earth every year as the sports model. These discs are described by most witnesses as silver and brightly lit. They rotate and coined the term flying saucer back in the 1950s. Lazar's investigations included precisely these exciting details, namely finding out how the parts were able to fly without any fuel or recognizable propulsion. What he discovered was outrageous. A central element of Lazar's statements is the description of element 115, which was still unknown on Earth at the time. This substance is capable of generating an anti-gravitational field. In a clear test, this means overcoming the laws of gravity and thus breaking with the central element of Newtonian physics. This technology, once fully understood and replicated by us humans, could not only revolutionize space travel, but also change our entire understanding of physics and energy forever. In the course of his work, Lazar theorized the technologies that power these spaceships. He realized that faster-than-light travel or the manipulation of space-time are no problem at all for beings who master these technologies. Presumably, members of these civilizations overcome long distances in their flying saucers with the help of technologies that we have not yet cracked. Anti-gravity and space-time curvatures are, in essence, the solution to what we know from science fiction as the warp drive. During Lazar's active time, however, it was allegedly not possible to make UFOs fly and to actually copy technologies. But if we believe other witnesses, the US military is still working on it today. Why is the government hiding it? Quote, "It is ridiculous that the government continues to withhold information that could change the world's social, technological, and economic future." In his books and speeches, the UFO leaker has repeatedly and enthusiastically pointed out that it is incomprehensible that the US government and other governments around the world are withholding their knowledge about UFOs and extraterrestrial technologies. Imagine how our world would change if we knew that our ideas about physics are only part of the truth. Researchers who today rack their brains over formulas or laboriously try to find ways to make space travel more and more difficult might have access to new technologies and materials. It's not just science and space travel that could benefit. We are polluting our planet with the residues of combustion engines, and the industry is probably also operating at Stone Age levels compared to alien technologies. Why on earth are politicians withholding knowledge and pretending that there are no UFOs, these technologies, or aliens? There was an exciting answer to this question in the summer of 2023 when military leaker David Grusch forced a hearing before the US Congress. Grusch himself was an investigator in a military UFO investigation unit for many years. He was supposed to investigate UFO sightings across the country, but then Grosch found out that his job was just a fake. A secret military unit was working behind him, making crashed UFOs and all evidence connected with the findings disappear before the official investigators arrived. Colleagues are said to have told Grosch behind closed doors that the military has possessed UFO technology since the Roswell crash in 1947, collecting it in order to reverse engineer it and get a hold of the new technology. This corresponds exactly to what Bob Lazar already claimed. In the context of the hearing, it was repeatedly said that the government does not share the knowledge because the military wants to secure the technologies before anyone else and thus expand the military superiority of the USA. So it's not about progress from the world, but about power and secret machinations. It seems as if there are two worlds on this earth, what we are officially led to believe and what is real. Lazar himself built UFOs. Quote, "Working on alien spaceships, understanding them, and trying to replicate their technology was the most exciting and terrifying experience of my life." It sounds exciting and terrifying at the same time, as Bob Lazar describes his work at the S4 Research Center. Working between these two worlds took its toll on the man, and he often doubted what was real and what was not. The opportunity to study and decipher technologies far beyond current human understanding provided a unique opportunity to push the boundaries of science. According to Lazar, his work included trying to understand the workings of the propulsion systems of the spacecraft. A key point was the propulsion system made possible by element 115. Lazar was fascinated to be part of such a secret and groundbreaking project, but at the same time, what he saw and did on a daily basis also frightened him. The possible consequences of these technologies, both the good and the potential risks, often push the scientist to his emotional limits. Quote, "I'm not a UFO fanatic. I was never interested in UFOs before I worked there at S4. Bob Lazar describes himself as a young enthusiast who had never heard or known anything about real UFOs before starting work. He also knew nothing more than that there were people who claimed to have seen flying saucers or what had been reported in the media about the Roswell crash. In the beginning, Lazar's scientific ambition and career came first. It was only over time that he began to have doubts and realize the explosive nature of his work. After leaving S4, Lazar attended ufologist conventions and spoke with other dropouts. The truth about element 115. Element 115, the stable element, is what is used, and yes, it does create a gravitational field. Now you're probably wondering what the mysterious element 115 actually is and where it comes from. Lazar describes element 115 as moscovium, as the stable element that the power source and centerpiece of the propulsion systems of all currently known alien spacecraft. According to Lazar, these propulsion systems used element 115 to create a strong gravitational field that allowed the spaceships to distort space around them, allowing them to travel enormous distances almost instantaneously. This technology, he claims, would operate on a completely different level to anything known or understood by human science to date. In the 21st century, scientists are already working feverishly on implementation of the warp drive, which, as Lazar describes, works by distorting space-time. Distances are not traveled through the three-dimensional space that we see, but via space-time folds, and, in principle, via dimensions below or above. However, our scientists have so far failed to answer the question of how we can generate the energy for this space-time distortion. This is where we come up against the limits of Newtonian physics and Einstein's relativity equations. According to these physical models, the energy requirement would go to infinity. The idea that a stable, heavy element such as element 115 can cause such fundamental physical effects provokes many scientists. However, a few years ago, proof of the existence of the mysterious element was provided. Scientists succeeded in producing moscovium synthetically for the first time in 2003. However, it was extremely unstable and disintegrated in milliseconds. Apparently, the extraterrestrials have another trick up their sleeve that we do not yet understand. Bob Lazar, Bob and Ingo Swan. I only saw what I saw. I've only done what I've done. Bob Lazar is not the only one who claims to have knowledge of UFO technologies and extraterrestrials. U.S. scientist Bob Dean served with NATO for 6 years and claims to have discovered that the U.S. government and military are aware of 9 extraterrestrial species. 3 more species are said to have been added later. Bob Dean claims that these beings are active on Earth itself, in its environment such as on the Moon and throughout the solar system. Some of them are similar to us, others exist in completely different dimensions and are either not visible to us at all or only partially visible. Another impressive witness to very real alien activity in our solar system was the American medium Ingo Swan. The clairvoyant worked intensively with scientists and the military on various projects in the 1960s and 70s. Swan was a specialist in remote viewing, a technique in which extraordinarily gifted people direct their spiritual gaze to distant places. Swan scanned Jupiter in this way long before a probe reached the planet for the first time, and later he is said to have seen aliens on the Moon as part of a secret project.
For decades there are rumors about secret alien bases on the backside of the Moon. But what is there to the claims in our alleged witnesses and photos of buildings and relics of alien mining on the Moon really real? We investigate the matter and are happy if you join us right now in this clarification of the mysterious circumstances around the Moon. The dark side of the Moon is not dark at all, on the contrary. The back side of the Moon experiences the same play on brightness and darkness as the front side. The back side is called dark because it can never be seen from Earth and was unknown and in the dark for many generations of people. The Moon orbits the Sun bound to the orbit of the Earth. Since the Moon and the Earth rotate around their own axis at approximately the same speed, an exciting effect occurs. The Moon and the Earth always show exactly the same side to each other. If you look at the Moon, you can distinguish dark and bright areas, and these patterns are always the same. The front side changes depending on the irradiation angle of the Sun, and then the Moon is sometimes completely dark, as a crescent, half, or fully illuminated. The back side experiences a similar play of light and shadow, so it is neither completely dark nor bright. People only know what the far side of the Moon looks like since it was visited by the first probes. Strictly speaking, it was the Soviet mission Luna 3 that sent the first images of the far side of the Moon back to Earth on October 7, 1959. Already in ancient times, the far side of the Moon was associated with mysterious, unknown, and dark forces, an effect that has lasted until today. Today, however, people do not suspect evil spirits or demons on the back of the Moon, but extraterrestrials. Many sources report about an extraterrestrial civilization, which should have lived once on the Moon or have operated mining there. Allegedly, these aliens still operate a space base there and watch from the back of the Moon suspiciously the doings of humans and our space projects. That the aliens are on the back of the Earth satellite is obvious, because we cannot see their activities there. There are nevertheless some hints or even tangible proofs for the existence of these beings. 1. The Moon missions. In 1969, 3 men flew to the Moon, and 2 of them went to the surface in a lunar capsule, while the third one did some laps around the Moon, lonely and alone in the base module. Neil Armstrong and Buzz Aldrin were the first men on the Moon. The fact that they made a moonwalk, placed a flag of the USA in the moon dust, and carried out some scientific investigations belongs to the known part of the mission. Allegedly, however, NASA is concealing something from us about this moon flight. So Aldrin and Armstrong are supposed to have sighted already with their landing on the Moon some spaceships, which observed the intention of the 2 men from safe distance. Of course, this was never part of the public screening of the moon landing, and the landing was, as always claimed, also not broadcast live, but slightly delayed in order to cut out events from the pictures, of which the public should not notice anything. Thus, the sequence in which Armstrong steered the camera to the edge of the ocean of tranquility on the Moon to film the spacecraft was allegedly also deleted. The radio message, "Sir, these babies are big, very big in fact. They have placed themselves on the rim of the crater and are watching us," was never made public. One person who claims to have heard the announcement live at NASA at the time is Otto Bender. The former communications technician at NASA said years after the moon landing that he happened to be in the control center when the radio message was received. Other NASA employees later testified that pieces had been removed from the other Apollo missions as well. According to these witnesses, the sighting of extraterrestrials on the moon had been quite normal, and at NASA they call the apparitions Santa Claus. After the shocking details first came to light in the 1970s and 1980s, incidents of former NASA employees claiming the outrageous occurred again in the 1990s. Donna Hare once worked for a NASA subcontractor, and her job was to remove anomalies from image and film recordings. To be precise, this meant that Donna Hare retouched spaceships out of pictures. If one is to believe this witness, this practice is everyday life at NASA, and every day thousands of pictures of probe missions from Mars, the Moon, or also film material from the ISS are reworked in such a way that all traces of UFOs and extraterrestrial life forms have disappeared. Nevertheless, even the image processing experts of NASA do not succeed in everything, because again and again, images leak out that show strange phenomena. 2. Strange monuments. On the moon, two formations called the Shard and the Castle in particular have made it to some notoriety. The Shard is a conspicuous structure on the lunar surface, made famous by photographs taken by NASA's Lunar Orbiter program in the 1960s. It is a monolithic structure estimated to rise more than 3 kilometers above the lunar landscape. The exact nature and origin of the Shard are the subject of speculation and debate. Some believe it is a natural geological phenomenon, possibly the result of tectonic activity or a meteorite impact. Others speculate that it may be artificial, an indication of an advanced extraterrestrial civilization. While most scientists favor natural formation, the Shard remains the center of intense speculation surrounding extraterrestrial activity on the moon to this day. The Castle is another mysterious structure visible in some images taken by NASA's Lunar Orbiter program in the 1960s. The Castle appears to hover above the lunar surface and has a distinctive shape that looks like a building. The exact nature and origin of the castle have also been the subject of speculation and debate since the images became known. Again, most scientists declare that it is a natural geological phenomenon, while ufologists and alien enthusiasts in particular see in this formation a sign of former extraterrestrial activity. Quite recent is the discovery of a cube-like object photographed by a Chinese rover on the far side of the moon. The image was taken by U-22 on December 3, 2021, and shows a large cubic object on the horizon, about 80 meters from its position. After 2 lunar days, U-22 had reached the object and inspected it from all sides. In this case, the object turned out to be an ordinary boulder, highlighted in a particular way by light and shadow. Critics also suspect something similar with the formation's splinter and castle, but we won't know exactly until rovers or humans have been on site. Before the end of this decade, NASA's Artemis mission is expected to put humans on the moon again for the first time. There are even plans for a permanently inhabited lunar base. Then, finally, humans on the ground are to reveal all the secrets of the moon. 3rd UFO sighting on the moon. In 1971, U.S. astronaut James Irwin, in his role as pilot of the Apollo 15 lunar landing module, filmed an object clearly hovering over the lunar surface that looked like a flying saucer. The dome shape and shadow under the spacecraft are clearly visible. There are also many images of diffuse, cigar-shaped spacecraft hovering over the lunar surface, with the shadow cast by the objects serving as evidence of authenticity as well as the object's locomotion. After such photographs and reports by astronauts became public, NASA often attempted to rationalize or explain the phenomena. In many cases, the observations were explained as optical illusions, reflections, camera anomalies, or natural geological phenomena. NASA's official stance on UFOs and extraterrestrial claims is skeptical, and it has consistently stressed that there is no conclusive evidence of extraterrestrial life or advanced technologies on the moon or in other parts of space. Supporters of NASA say the release of James Irwin's film footage suggests the agency has nothing to hide. But anyone who sees the flying saucer and is then expected to believe in a natural phenomenon is bound to feel a bit led by the nose. Or what do you think? 4. Mining activities on the moon. These tracks were originally attributed to the movement of lunar sailstones. Supposedly, these types of rocks moved over long distances as ice once present on the moon melted beneath them. One gap in these explanations has always been that tracks like these are actually formed only when there is wind and great gravity. But on the moon, no single breeze blows, and masses are much lighter on the Earth satellite than on the Earth. In the present time, these traces inside a crater were interpreted as indications of extraterrestrial mining. Now you can ask yourself, what aliens should mine on the moon if there is only wasteland and dust there? Well, an interesting answer to this question was found not so long ago. Apparently, there are minerals on the moon that are rich in helium-3, and that's why even Earthlings are now considering mining the rock on a large scale on the moon and bringing it back to Earth. Helium-3 is suitable for nuclear fusion like no other isotope. A space shuttle full of this raw material could supply the entire USA with electricity for a year. So what aliens have mined on the moon, or may still be mining today, could thus be cleared up. A researcher has discovered on a rather blurred picture of NASA even an object that looks like a massive multi-plate mining machine. Allegedly, the image was distorted by NASA to make the object unrecognizable. 5. Lights and glows. For centuries, astronomers and scientists have observed unexplained light phenomena on the lunar surface. This is probably where the tales of the man in the moon turning the lights on and off came from. Scientists call these short-lived bursts of light transient lunar phenomena. The causes of these phenomena are still not fully understood, and again some want to see evidence of alien activity in them, while others say quite normal. Some scientists believe that these lights could be the result of gas emissions or volcanic activity on the moon. Other theories say that they could be caused by the reflection of sunlight from certain minerals or by electrostatic discharges. In fact, there are quite a few of these light phenomena for which there is no natural explanation whatsoever, and we may ask why aliens are so vehemently ruled out as the cause when supposedly no one knows if they exist or not.
The Solomon Islands. Are the Solomon Islands, east of Papua New Guinea, really just an innocent natural paradise offering untouched nature, colorful coral reefs, and the humble life of the locals? Or are these islands the last retreat of the Nephilim, a race of giants who ruled the earth 1,000 years ago? The first Europeans to arrive on the island chain were the Spaniards. In 1568, Alvaro de Medina was the first to set foot on the main island and immediately guessed that there were great riches there. He christened the islands after Solomon, the biblical king who was said to have hoarded incredible riches in his temple in Jerusalem. After Medina, more and more Spaniards came to this remote corner of the earth in their greedy search for gold. To this day, large companies are cannibalizing the wealth of the Solomons in numerous gold mines. The mining of gold, zinc, and phosphorus has now affected the islands so much that the environmentalists are calling for a halt to the work. The locals warn the greedy gold prospectors of a very different danger lurking in the Solomons. The Nephilim are said to strike cruelly when they see their last reserves threatened. The legendary giants of the Solomon Islands. The 6 main islands and countless islets are home to a colorful mix of Malaysians, Polynesians, and Micronesians, as well as immigrants and mixed-race people. Some of the islands are so remote that cultures and customs there have hardly changed in the last centuries. Especially among the very primitive Micronesians, legends and stories circulate that tell of gloomy giants. This species is said to have once come from the sky. By interbreeding with human women, mixed creatures were created, half giant, half human. However, the beings did not become peaceful like most humans, but remained hard, gloomy, and vengeful. In this, the giants of the Solomons resemble the biblical Nephilim, and modern para-researchers like to draw comparisons between the two species. Could it be that the last Nephilim retreated to the Solomon Islands and have been wreaking havoc there ever since? These beings are feared by the Melanesians. According to legends, they live in underground tunnels and cave systems. The locals avoid the tunnels and paths used by the giants. Nevertheless, there is said to be regular attacks. The giants come at night and kidnap men from the villages, sometimes women and children. Once they have disappeared, they usually do not return. Only rarely do people escape the giants, and then they tell of terrible figures, dark, evil, with fiery red eyes. The intentions of the giants are not difficult to see through. They are said to have already torn apart and eaten the human victims in front of witnesses. Now we can say that maybe these are just crazy stories from some natives, but there is evidence of the existence of the giants that cannot be denied. Marius Boyrian studied the giants. That the giants are anything but delusions of a native is shown by the work of Western researcher and anthropologist Marius Boyrian. As director of the Solomon Anthropological Expedition Trust Board Incorporated, he was involved in studies of the giants on the islands. Boyrian himself was from Australia and has studied legends and their veracity in many parts of Polynesia and in the Pacific regions. In the Solomon Islands, the researcher liked it so much that he even married a local woman. Through his close association, he was initiated into the culture and traditions of the islands like no other. His knowledge was first published in 2010 in the book Solomon Island Mysteries. In it, Boyrian shares local stories, including some experienced by his own wife. In his investigations, he discovered that there are giants on almost all the islands in the group. The size of the apparitions was fairly uniformly described as 3 meters or slightly more. Although many of the tribes had little contact with each other, the stories, legends, and descriptions were similar. Boyrian called the entities Guadalcanal giants and described the giants as having long black, brown, or red hair, double eyebrows, red eyeballs, flat noses, and wide mouths. The scientist also witnessed abductions of people from villages. He mentions a huge killer giant that attacked the local population. Further, the anthropologist reports about the social structures of the island giants and names their number to several thousand. The Solomon Islands consist of several square kilometers of jungle, mountainous areas, and remote valleys where hardly any human being comes. Strictly speaking, the island chain, which is to this day is hardly touched by the Western world, represents the perfect retreat for the giants. Most harrowing is the story of the girl Mango, who was kidnapped by the giants and reappeared after 25 years. Mango was pregnant when she was found, and the young woman told of how she lived for many years as the wife of a giant. She gave birth to a half-blooded boy who was killed at the age of 5. Presumably, the child was killed because he was too much like a giant. Mango herself remained in a severely unstable mental state until her death. It is reported that some men in the islands know to this day where the giant child is buried. However, efforts to exhume and investigate the child have not yet been made. Disappeared Japanese soldiers. That the stories surrounding the giants are true is further proven by the reports of the Japanese forces that were on the islands between 1942 and 1943. On the main island of Guadalcanal, the decisive battle between the Japanese and the USA took place during the Second World War. While the Americans remained in the coastal areas, the Japanese forces, oppressed by superior forces, retreated further and further into the remote parts of the island. During these times, several Japanese soldiers reportedly disappeared, and some reported monster creatures appearing at night and ravaging their camp. More evidence on Pohnpei. With the island of Pohnpei, we have another nature reserve that hardly anyone in the Western world knows about. The island belongs to the Federated States of Micronesia in the Western Pacific and has some special features. Only about 2,500 to 3,000 kilometers away from Solomon Islands, an unusual kingdom must have existed once. The cult site of Nab Madal consists of a complex series of platforms, buildings, and channels built on over 90 different islands in the Pohnpei Reef Compound. Experts dated the date of construction of the structures to between the 8th and 16th century. Nan Madal consists mainly of basalt stones weighing several tons, which could hardly be moved and precisely laid even with modern machines. The fact that they were built mainly near the coast and directly adjacent to the sea is another miracle that can hardly be explained. According to legends, giants were at work in Nan Madal, and they are said to have inhabited the site. Everything here is oversized: the stairs, the gates, the buildings, and streets. Stones weighing 5 to 50 tons can hardly have been moved by the often rather small and delicate-built locals. A total of 750,000 tons of stone are said to have been processed here. This amount of stone alone and the size of the buildings are very unusual for the area. Victor Berg, a German explorer, undertook extensive excavations on the island around 1907. During his work, Berg came across a sealed tomb that was supposed to contain the remains of the ancient rulers of the site. To his surprise, he found skeletal remains significantly larger than anything he had seen before. The tallest people must have been just over 10 feet tall when they were alive. The skulls and bone shapes roughly match those of normal humans. This discovery led Berg to want to learn more about the identity of these giant rulers. However, the night after his discovery, a huge storm hit Pohnpei and Berg was killed that night under mysterious circumstances. The misfortune made the locals believe even more that Nan Madol was guarded by supernatural forces. Victor Berg's findings disappeared with the end of the German colonial period on the island. After World War I, Japan took control of Pohnpei and also began to explore Nan Madol. Japanese scientists discovered that the remains of Nan Madol, built on coral reefs, were only a small part of the site. The original Nan Madol extended deeper into the ocean and parts of the city now lie underwater. In the sunken parts of the city, the Japanese reportedly discovered massive platinum coffins containing the remains of giant humans. The return of the Nephilim. The Old Testament, unfortunately, does not reveal very much that is really usable about the mystical race of the Nephilim. All that is hinted at in Genesis is that the fathers of the Nephilim were giants and the mothers were human women. The progenitors of the race are said to have been fallen angels. In pre-astronautics, these beings are equated with extraterrestrials descended from heaven. There are different religious interpretations about the true nature of the Nephilim. While Christian writings speak of the Nephilim producing many heroes of extraordinary strength, Jewish mysticism in particular paints a very different picture. Here, the giants who came from heaven are evil demons who, despite being mixed with human women, could not overcome their bad habits. They are described as dark entities full of hatred, murderousness, and savage manners. Now there are some indications that these less civilized beings will eventually return to the human world. In John's Revelation, chapter 9, there is talk of an army of 200 million strange creatures. These beings will bring a plague to the earth that will lead to the death of 1/3 of humanity. The nature and characteristics of these beings are not mentioned by name, but figurative descriptions suggest a connection to the Nephilim. Some theologians are certain that the giants will be the creatures that will bring ruin to mankind at the end of time. Luke chapter 21, verse 26 prophesies, "The powers of heaven will be shaken, and men will faint with fear at what is coming upon the earth." For Bible interpreters, it was obvious that something so terrible could only be Nephilim and their descendants. What do you think? Do the stories of the Bible have a true background, and could it really be that deep in the primeval forests of lonely islands, the last Nephilim are waiting for the apocalypse and their return to the world of men?